Okay, everybody, let's start talking about actual strategies. We've talked a lot about how we think about election violence. So what do we do? How do we actually prevent it? The first strategy I'm going to talk about today is just one of many. So it's possible you'll watch this video and say, okay, I can actually see how that's really important. That is a thing that I want to work on. I'm going to step into that and get going. It's also possible you'll listen to this video and then you'll say, I have no idea what I could possibly do to help in that area. If that's the case, please do not decide that that means there's nothing you can do, because we know from international studies, there are so many functional strategies. And today I'm talking about just one, and there are more videos coming. So today's strategy is security sector engagement. Security sector, when I say that phrase, I'm talking about mostly local police forces, but the security sector can also, in some cases, involve military. We know from international experiences that what the security sector does in situations of potential election violence or actual election violence can make things either much, much better or much, much worse. And part of that has to do with how they handle violence, and part of that has to do with whether the security sector perceives itself as being part of the local community. So let's start with that local community piece. One of the things that we can do if we're trying to work on security sector engagement is build the relationships between local police and local community. There are some places where the police actually know community members really, really well, and vice versa. But in a lot of places, there's kind of this separation and anonymity. So we can take on initiatives like, for example, people do coffee with a cop, where a member of the local police force will volunteer to be present and other folks can show up and just have breakfast, get to know each other, talk about concerns, talk about their day-to-day lives, learn about each other's pets. And it really is a matter of building those relationships. You can also work on, can we go for a walk together? Can a police officer come for a classroom visit and get to know the high school students? So not a safety lecture, but like, can they just come and get to know the students who are in the room and talk to them and find out what they're thinking about and what they're concerned about? Can there be a common service project that we can work on together? Like maybe the park needs to be cleaned. Is it possible that the local police force and some of the people in the community can get together and help clean up the park? The other thing we can do in terms of building these relationships is talk with police forces ahead of time about the possibility of nonviolent protests. Just say, hey, listen, I know that if such and such happens, my community, the people that I care about, are not going to be okay with that. Like if the election unfolds this way or if the election unfolds that way, I am pretty sure that we are going to want to be in the streets and we're going to want to be protesting. But I don't want that to be a violent protest, and I don't want it to be causing like super tangled up violence escalation with police. So can we have a conversation about how to make this happen in a way that we can make clear what we need to make clear as protesters, and then also not run into a situation where there's escalating violence between protesters and police? This is a conversation that you can have ahead of time and that most police departments will have ahead of time. The other thing that an ordinary person might be able to do is find out what kind of training the local police force has. De-escalation strategies are extremely important. What do you do if there is potential violence rising up in a crowd? How do you react to that? Because there are strategies that tend to escalate the violence and make things worse and cause like a catalyst reaction kind of event. And there are strategies by which police officers can intervene that are going to be more likely to calm things down and, lower the temperature and not let that ripples of violence situation happen. So you can also just make contact and ask, hey, listen, I am thinking about election violence and the possibility that this could happen, and we just don't know. What are you thinking about this? Like, is the force thinking about this? Is there any way that the community could be of support for you? Relationships between police and communities are actually pretty fraught. That's been the case in the United States for quite some time. And it's not all the same. People perceive the relationships very differently. Some people are super on board with support for police, and some people are super the other direction and saying that we don't need them in our communities at all. And a lot of folks are somewhere in the middle. And these relationships, like I said, are complicated and tend to be tense. But let's put these things aside for a minute. It doesn't mean you have to forget about your opinions on this subject. What you do need to know, what all of us need to know, is that the reality is the behavior of the security sector is really important when we are concerned about the possibility of election violence. And the things that I have just told you are the things that can make a difference. Is the local security sector really well trained in violence de-escalation strategies? And does the local security sector perceive itself to be part of the community instead of working in opposition to the community? And these are things that we can improve by way of our interactions and just getting to know each other and lowering the temperature a little bit. Next time we talk, I'll talk to you about a different strategy, which is election management and administration.